Hey everybody, it's Chris. We're back here. So what we've gone ahead and done is fired up two tables of 10 cent, 25 cent on full tilt poker. And I'm really just going to spend this first episode walking you through just the basics of pre-flop play, working on kind of describing basic tables, hand reading, and that kind of stuff. Going to skip the player introduction since we've got a hand going right now. We've got pocket tens. So this is the first thing that we're going to notice. You're going to see at 10 cent, 25 cent that you're really not going to see at other limits. You're going to see a lot of limping in. Limping in is when you just call the blind, and what it really is besides being a bad play, is it really gives away the strength of your hand. Most people that play the 10 cent, 25 cent games, when they limp in, they tend to limp in with their weaker hands. They limp in with their small pairs, their suited connectors, their weak aces, and what it really does is it gives away the strength of their hand without them really doing anything but committing 25 cents to the pot. If you ask any good six-max player, limping in when you're the first person to act is basically always a mistake. So we're going to do two things that. Number one, we're going to try and note which players, like this player here is on table 2, are doing that, what hands they're doing it with, and learn to attack it. Quick player introduction. I do not know who any of these players are, but I do want to point out a couple important things. Generally, when players buy in with less than the full amount, they tend to be really bad players. So as we see here, we've got a player on table 2, Hanky Spanky 1, who's only bought in for $10. Another player, Ackley 1915 2, who has $7. Another player with $10. Another guy with 18. And this is going to highlight my first point, number 1, about getting out of the micro stakes. Selecting into bad games is a great idea. And one of the great parts about playing micro stakes is it's very, very easy to do. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the full tilt lobby here. If you see right here, all these tables that have player to flop percents of like 40 or higher, that means there are a ton of people on these tables who are limping in, who are just taking small flops and tend to be very bad players. So if you're right now just a break-even player, make sure when you sit down to play that you're game selecting well and that you're choosing to play against players who are not good. For a long time, I had this big poker ego when I was always like, oh, I want to be the best. Oh, I only want to play against good players so I can outplay the good players. It took me a couple years to really realize that in the end of the day, we're playing poker to make money. And it's a lot easier to make money by beating up on really, really bad players than it is playing against the good regulars. So my first point of advice, especially if you're on a short bankroll, you see you only have a couple $100s, play against bad players and work on taking their money before you take shots at playing against a table full of good full stacked players.